You're not sad, you're not happy, you're not angry either. You just feel nothing. Like you could watch something devastating on the news and literally feel absolutely nothing. You get good news, the exact kind of news you've been waiting months for, and still nothing. And honestly, the scariest part, you don't really know when it started or why it hasn't stopped. If that empty feeling of just feeling nothing really resonates with you, I need you to hear this right now. This is not laziness. You are not broken. You're not permanently flawed. It actually has a name. And by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand the exact brain mechanisms at play here. Once you get the biology of what's happening inside your head, you can actually start to change it. Here's what this usually looks like day to day. You know, you used to cry at sad movies. You used to get genuinely excited about upcoming plans with friends. But now, you watch the saddest, most heartbreaking scene in a movie and you just stare blankly at the screen. You say yes to plans just to avoid that exhausting conversation about why you'd so much rather stay home. People might look at you and say, hey, you seem distant, and you don't even disagree because, honestly, you feel distant from yourself. This isn't depression in the way most people describe it. There's no crying, no obvious heavy sadness. It's simply the complete absence of anything at all. Okay, let's dive into this. That absence you're feeling has a clinical name that most people have never even heard of. It's called emotional blunting. And this definition is absolutely crucial. It's a measurable reduction in emotional reactivity. Now notice how the event is still registered by the brain. Like, logically you know an event is sad, or you know it's happy. You see it happening. But what's disrupted is that translation process. The event gets registered, but it just isn't translated into a felt emotion in your body. It is a complete disconnect. What's more, emotional blunting very often overlaps with another clinical term, alexithymia. This is basically a reduced ability to identify and describe your own emotions. In clinical cases, these two conditions are constantly overlapping. You see, the crucial second step of feeling, the part where you actually identify what an experience means to you internally, gets completely disrupted. You aren't just numb to pain in some poetic movie character kind of way. It's a very real, measurable cognitive disconnect where the feelings just can't be mapped. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the biology specifically points to the amygdala. The amygdala is essentially your brain's center for emotional intensity, and neuroscientists have actively linked this exact feeling of numbness to reduced activity in this specific region. So when we talk about emotional blunting, we are looking at a physical, biological reality. The volume dial on your amygdala has literally been turned down. It is not that you aren't trying hard enough to care. Your brain's emotional center is physically operating at a reduced capacity. And it's not just the amygdala. This whole thing also involves the reward pathway. This is the brain circuit that typically lights up when something good happens to you. It's what gives you that warm, satisfied feeling when you hit a goal or eat a great meal or connect with a friend. But in cases of emotional numbness, this pathway goes completely quiet. And when that happens, good things literally stop feeling good. I really want to drive this point home. When your reward pathway and your amygdala alter their activity like this, it's biology. It is absolutely not a character flaw. Let's move on and see how this builds. What actually causes this biological shift in the first place? Well, there are three main things, and almost nobody explains all three of them together. Cause number one, chronic stress. When your nervous system is flooded with stress hormones for months on end, it simply cannot sustain that level of high alert, so it starts dialing down your emotional response as a protective measure. Think of it exactly like a callus. Just like your body calluses skin that gets rubbed too often, your brain calluses over your emotions to protect you from constant, unrelenting stress. Then there's cause number two, unprocessed trauma, and this is a massive one. We hear about the standard trauma responses all the time, right? Fight, flight, freeze. But numbness is sitting right alongside them as one of the absolute most common trauma responses of all. When you're overwhelmed by unprocessed trauma, your brain essentially makes a calculated decision. It decides that feeling less or feeling nothing at all is simply much safer than feeling everything all at once. The numbness just becomes a shield. And then we have cause number three. This is the one almost nobody talks about, but the clinical research is incredibly clear on it. Antidepressants, specifically SSRIs. Certain medications list emotional blunting as a highly documented side effect in a significant percentage of users. Yes, the medication might actively help lift the heavy sadness and those extreme lows, but for a lot of people, it also eliminates the highs. It flattens the entire emotional curve. So if you started medication and the sadness lifted, but suddenly so did your joy, your excitement, and your passion, this is very likely why. It is not in your head. It is a documented side effect. So, knowing all this biology and these causes, how do we actually fix it? Well, the first rule is a warning. You cannot force emotion back by trying harder to feel. I know, it's incredibly tempting. You watch a sad movie and you try to force yourself to shed a tear. You go to a party and force a smile just to prove you're okay. But that approach actually backfires. Why? Because it turns feeling into just another task to fail at. It adds pressure and stress to a nervous system that is already completely numbed out from being overwhelmed. And this brilliantly illustrates what actually works, according to the clinical research on emotional blunting. Feeling often follows action, not the other way around. We so often think we need to feel motivated or feel excited before we do something. But the clinical approach for recovery, which is called behavioral activation, flips that entirely. You have to deliberately do things associated with pleasure, even before you feel like it. You take the action first, knowing the feeling is going to lag behind, but trusting that action is the engine that eventually pulls the feeling forward. So the crucial point is, how do we put this into a concrete recovery plan? Well, here are the actionable steps. First, deliberately practice that behavioral activation we just talked about. Go through the motions of things you used to love. Second, name the numbness out loud. Say it to yourself, or better yet, say it to a therapist. This condition thrives on being unnamed and hidden in the dark. Bring it out into the light. And third, if this numbness started after a medication change, talk to a prescriber directly about it. Dosage and medication type make a measurable difference for so many people. Please don't just accept feeling nothing as the permanent price of not feeling sad. I really want to reassure you, for most people, this condition is completely reversible. If any part of this explainer described the last few months or even years of your life, remember this. You are not broken, and you're definitely not alone in it. This is one of the most common and least discussed psychological experiences there is. So I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Was there a specific moment you noticed it start? Tell me in the comments.